regular meeting. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do we have any amendments, Mr.
Yes,
Daugherty?
Mayor, I'd like to add to the consent agenda 4D motion, or to excuse John Clausen, Councilmember John Clausen, for personal reasons tonight.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lucarelli. Any discussion of adding to that to the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it has been added to the consent agenda to excuse Councilmember Clausen for personal reasons. All right, any other amendments or additions to the agenda? Councilmember Ashby?
No, Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
A motion and a second to amend the agenda, to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion of this evening's agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been approved. We're to our first citizen comment period, and it's for any items that are on this evening's agenda. And if you're here for the plastic bag ban, there is a public hearing, and I've got a sign-up sheet for that, and we will take testimony on that matter in the name order on the sign-up sheet, and then ask for others to testify. So if you've wish to testify on, or actually provide comment on anything that is on this evening's agenda, this is your opportunity, and there's a second citizen comment period at the end of the meeting for any items. So with that, any citizen comments for items on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the first citizen comment period. We are to our consent agenda.
Mayor, I would move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion of the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We have two presentations this evening. The first is from the Saints Car Club. You would step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Roger Jensen, Saints Car Club, and I'd like to have Bill Hubble, our cruise director, come up with me and to save a little time for the council.
Okay.
First of all, this was our 32nd year doing the cruise, our 22nd, but the cruise has been going for 32 years. We could not do this without the approval of the mayor and the council and the city engineer who has public works there and the police department and so forth. We couldn't put this on. Bill will give you the numbers of attendance and so forth, but we had visitors from British Columbia and Sequim, Port Townsend, Port Angeles. So I think some of the hotel motel monies that we get and our advertising with the Discover magazine and some of the other things that we do is working, because we had a lot of people come to town from out of the area. We sold out all of our t-shirts, over 4,000 of them. And that's the second time we've ever done that. And the president said this was unusual, and he said most of the people were from out of town. So that's what we're aiming to do, and I think the city feels the same way. But we want to thank the city again, and Mark, thank you for Public Works. Everything went well. We got everything all cleaned up, and we were out of there a little after 5 o'clock. And I'll let Bill talk a little bit about ridership and the attendance.
Hello, Bill Hubble. I'm a lifetime Port Orchard resident. And we, this year we had a decent amount of cars. We had 408 paying customers. And then our club cars and our feature cars, we had 4 of them, and we ended up with like 455. And plus, we also had the U11 unlimited hydroplane at our show this year. And of course, Lou Berry and his restored logging truck, vintage logging truck. Now we had our count for the passengers on our buses, we were at just about 1,100. And we, our ferry passengers around 200, yeah, 200, not 2. And, you know, you can't get a real strong count of how many people came to the town. But I think we did pretty close, between 10 and 12,000 people that came through our, and saw the show. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you again, council, for allowing us to come tonight and give you a little update on what took place this weekend. If you ever have any suggestions on what we need to do or what we can do better or anything, we appreciate it. But you guys have been great to work with, and the gals down below in the office have been super too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for coming.
Congratulations.
Yep. And we do have... We do have a couple seats up here in the front. If those standing in the back want to come and have a seat, we welcome you. And our next item is we have a presentation from, I imagine, Sharon King from Fathoms of Fun.
Got to come down to my size. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having us on the agenda tonight. I wanted to come and tell you, like Roger and the cruise guys, how much we have appreciated the city. But I'm going to read it because I have a certificate to present to you. Fathoms of Fun Festival presents a certificate of special appreciation to the city of Port Orchard for your dedication and commitment in service in working with the Fathoms of Fun Festival organization for the past 52 years for our annual Grand Parade and other events throughout the years. In addition, we appreciate the Port Orchard Police Department for their help on the 4th of July fireworks show over Sinclair Inlet for many, many years, and their support in all other events that we do throughout the year. And to the City Public Works Department for their help in getting the signage out for our major events, Pirates Rendezvous, Seagull Splat Run, the Grand Parade, 3-Day Summer Festival, and the 4th of July Festival and Festival by the Bay. And we look forward to many more years of the partnership we have so enjoyed with our city. Signed this 13th day of August, 2019. And I would like to share with you this weekend that we just had, our first annual Battle of the Bands. We had 241 people that actually voted in the battle, and we were just thrilled with the turnout that came to watch the Battle of the Bands. And on the little ballot card, we did ask for their zips, but I haven't got that good news yet as to where they came from. I know I was sitting next to a couple that had ferried over from Bremerton, and they said, "Oh, please do this again next year. This was so much fun." So I think that added element to the whole entire weekend was a real plus for Fathoms and the cruise event. For the Grand Parade, I will say that we had more people lined up on Bay Street than I have seen in many years down on Bay Street. I would like to attribute it to the massive campaign that we did on Facebook, as well as our advertising that we do, but additionally, the added signage that we paid for to have scattered all throughout South Kitsap, I think was a big plus. And so that was so wonderful to see everyone downtown at this parade this year. And again, I challenge the city to be in the parade. I know you weren't there this last year, so I'm not going to spank your hand on that one. But again, I do want to thank the city for continuing to work with FASM. It takes a village of people and a lot of volunteers to put it on. And I so appreciated John Clausen being a parade judge this year. I think it opened up his eyes a lot to what really goes on to putting on a parade in this city. So again, thank you.
First time I've missed the parade in like 20 years, so. Got a pretty good track record. So thank you for the certificate, Sharon. All right, we'll be on to the next portion of our meeting, a public hearing on a new chapter, 6.20, plastic bag reduction of the City of Port Orchard Municipal Code. Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. The City of Port Orchard has been working in close cooperation with Kitsap County to develop an ordinance for single-use plastic bag reduction with goals of reducing solid waste and litter, encouraging the use of recyclable bags, and protecting the public health and welfare. The county's ordinance, which is nearly identical to the city's draft ordinance, was adopted last night. The cities of Bremerton and Bainbridge Island have already adopted similar ordinances. In summary, the city's ordinance requires that retail establishments shall not provide single-use plastic carryout bags, with limited exceptions for bags used for bulk produce, meat, bakery goods, etc. If recycled plastic bags are provided, a pass-through charge of 8 cents shall be collected. Exemptions for the pass-through charge are provided for food banks and food assistance programs and users of vouchers or electronic benefits cards for state and federal food assistance programs. The city has directed that a public hearing be held on the draft ordinance on August 13th tonight, to be continued on August 20th with potential action on August 20th as well. Staff recommends that the mayor open the public hearing.
So at this time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. So the first person that is signed up is Marcy Dupree.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I signed up in error,
Okay,
so I declined to speak.
all right. And we've got Tony. Was it Tony that signed up? Yes. Okay, come on up to the microphone and identify yourself for the record.
Hello, my name is Tony D'Onofrio. I'm the Sustainability Director for Town and Country and Central Markets, and I'm representing the Washington Food Industry Association, WFI, tonight, and speaking on their behalf. The Washington Food Industry Association is a nonprofit organization of grocers, supermarkets, independent grocers, coffee houses, and their suppliers in Washington State. And it represents about 20,000 jobs in the state, $3 billion to the state economy, and $380 million in taxes. And the WFI wants to acknowledge that we support the ban, the Port Orchard plastic bag ban, for a number of reasons. The first is because of the environmental consequences of the ban. The plastic bags, as listed, have all sorts of environmental consequences, whether they're into the land and harming life there, or whether they're on in the sea and harming life there, and they come back to us. We consume, by the way, unintentionally, about a credit card's worth of plastic a week. So the more we can do to get that out of our environment and disposed of properly, the better. The WFI also wants to recognize that the 8-cent pass-through charge is a good, solid fee to offset the costs, because the paper bags cost 10 to 12 cents each. A plastic bag is roughly 2.5 cents. If the grocers were to switch to all paper, they're going to incur a significant cost increase on our stores alone, Town and Country Markets. That's about $350,000 a year, the increase. So the 8-cent pass-through charge really helps the businesses be able to absorb this. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony. We've got Heather signed up next.
Good evening. My name is Heather Trim. I'm Executive Director of Zero Waste Washington. We are a statewide nonprofit working to make trash obsolete, and are very pleased that you are considering this ordinance tonight. The Kitsap County Commission last night voted in favor of an ordinance that is identical to the one that you're considering tonight. It was number 30 in the state. So if you were to vote favorably on your ordinance, you would be number 31. There are a number of other cities that are also considering ordinances at this point, including, for example, Kent and some other cities. We are very concerned about plastic bags and plastics in the environment because of the impact on wildlife. As you just heard, that we have lots of bags and other plastics that get out into the wildlife and break down into small little pieces called microplastics and then look like food and get eaten by animals and fish. We're also concerned about the impacts on our recycling system. The plastic bags and film, when they get into our blue bins and get into the recycling facilities, wrap around the rollers, and they cause the facilities to, it clogs up the machinery. And for every 8-hour shift, they then have to close down for at least 1 hour. The entire facility, go in with knives and drills and cut the plastic bags and film off. It's like concrete, it's so hard on there. And it's very dangerous for the workers, and it costs the ratepayers. And of course, we're also concerned about the community littering that you also see. This ordinance, we really support it because it would be consistent across Kitsap County for your residents. And we do support the charge, the pass-through charge, because we do think that it's important to have a level playing field for all the retail. Thank you very much for considering this tonight.
Thank you for your testimony. Last I have signed up is Susan.
Hi, I am Susan Tolman. I am a Port Orchard resident, and I'm the founder of the Compost Manufacturing Alliance, based right here in Port Orchard, Washington. I've worked in solid waste for about 30 years, and I've primarily spent my time in composting. And so I stand here in support of the plastic bag reduction ordinance here. And the reason for that is we take for granted in our state we have 60 compost facilities in our state. And you go to many states, or you have a cousin that visits, and they say, wow, you guys can compost all this. Well, what happens when you start taking more and more materials like food, when you go to the grocery store and you have broccoli with the rubber band on it and the tag, or you have, you know, the old produce in the yellow bag, a lot of times people throw it all in the bin, and that ends up at the compost facility. So I want to thank you for two things. First of all, if we net out that plastic, you know, we'll take it out upstream, which minimizes its opportunity to get there in the first place. And then you also specified colors for produce bags, which makes it really, really easy for people to know that a brown bag or a green bag is compostable. By the way, we vet products for compostability here in Port Orchard. We're one of 2 standards nationally, and we do it right here in Port Orchard. So we know a lot about compostables. And we also know a lot about the things that we don't want to come in, and that's plastic, film plastic. It's definitely a hardship on composters, and we want to make sure we make clean, good soil for our gardens and our school gardens, and we thank you for your leadership in bringing this ordinance forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So that's all I have on my sign-up sheet. Is anybody else wishing to testify on this matter? Okay, hearing none. Sharon, we're going to continue this public hearing to next week, so I should not close the public hearing then? Or should I close it and reopen it? I'm looking for some Robert's Rules clarification here.
Right. That would be a continuance is just a set over, so you can close the hearing for tonight and it will be reopened
And that
next
would
week.
reopen it?
Yes.
Okay, so then I'm looking for a motion to close the hearing for this evening.
Well, can we ask someone to speak? If they don't want, even if they don't want to, Chris Piercy?
I kind of half expected that. Thank you, Councilmember Ashby. My name is Chris Piercy. For the record, I am a program supervisor with the Public Works Department of Kitsap County. As you've heard tonight, I'm happy to announce that yesterday evening, the Kitsap County Commissioners did approve the countywide ordinance, very similar to what's happening here. And then on June 5th, in our partnership with the City of Bremerton, we were also able to bring an ordinance forward with them too. So, minus a few small areas of Kitsap County, we are all hopefully going to be living under the same umbrella of bag laws. I'm also happy to say that as a signatory to the Kitsap County Solid Waste Management Plan, and this being a priority in that plan, that we are happy to support the City of Port Orchard in their outreach efforts should you all move this ordinance forward. In fact, currently at the Kitsap Regional Library branch downtown here, any resident or of Port Orchard or anywhere in Kitsap County for that matter can go down to their local library and pick up the reusable bags that we're offering to residents right now to help them make this transition. So again, as others have said, we appreciate you partnering with us on this and your leadership, and I will leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chris. Councilmember Diener. I think we should close the public hearing, though, before we start any deliberations.
That's fine.
Okay. Is there a motion to do so? Councilmember,
Move that we close the public hearing at this time.
okay.
Second.
Councilmember Lucarelli seconded. All in favor of closing the public hearing for this evening? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. Council members. Councilmember Diener?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, terribly sorry. Misunderstood you. All right, so I think our intent is to, we'll have an ordinance for you to deliberate next week, as well as reopen the public hearing and take additional testimony if we get any next Tuesday. Remember, we have another business meeting next week, back to back. So any other questions or comments on this matter at this time?
No, I would just like to thank Mr. Piercy for coming forward at my request.
All right, with that, we will move on to our business items for this evening. The first of which is item 7A, adoption of an ordinance adopting amendments to chapters 20.12, 20.80, 20.86 to the Port Orchard Municipal Code to allow 9-lot short plats. Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. Before you tonight is an ordinance to change our subdivision code to change the definition of a short plat to be a subdivision of 4 or fewer lots into a subdivision of 9 or fewer lots. This is something that the Home Builders Association and the development community had asked for when we updated our subdivision code a few years ago. We had told them that we wanted to make sure that our design standards were first updated before we make it easier to do short platting. This ordinance does not change the SEPA threshold, so anything that is more than 4 lots still has to go through an environmental review process, but it does make it an administrative decision rather than a hearing examiner decision, so it's considerably less expensive and less time-consuming. I did pass out a corrected version of the ordinance because, as Councilmember Ashby pointed out, we deleted a term at the bottom of section 20.86.100. We have deleted the term within 30 days, just to say that the subdivision shall be approved with conditions, or denied after a determination that a complete application has been submitted. And so that's the only revision to the copy that is before you on the dais. And the staff recommendation is to approve the ordinance amending the short subdivision chapter.
Councilmember Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code Chapters 21.12, 20.80, and 20.86 to allow 9-lot short plats as presented.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Cacciardi. Any discussion or questions of staff on this matter? Councilmember Diener?
I'll just reiterate that this, as well as the next 3 items, were before the Planning Commission and the Land Use Subcommittee as well.
I think we're supported by both of those committees.
Yeah, I recalled that there weren't any dissenting viewpoints or minority
Correct.
viewpoints.
It was a unanimous recommendation from both committees and the Planning Commission.
Okay. Other questions? Councilmember Ashby.
No, I will just talk a little bit about other questions I had to Nick earlier this week after we got this. And that is 9 lots seems, not knowing what size is going to be subdivided down to 9. My question was, do we have a minimum lot size? And the answer is yes, but it depends upon the type of structure that's going on it. And we do, as Mr. Bond indicated, now have design codes. So the concerns that we may have had earlier about these small lots have been alleviated with other work that has been done.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code to allow 9-lot short plats. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to 7B, adoption of an ordinance adopting revisions to chapters 20.22, 20.140 and 20.150 of the Port Orchard Municipal Code clarifying requirements of minor land disturbing activity permits and tree cutting activity. Mr. Bond, it's you again.
The Department of Community Development has prepared amendments to Port Orchard Municipal Code sections 20.22, 20.140, and 20.150 to streamline and simplify the permit and review process for minor land disturbing activities and select tree cutting activities. These activities include the timely removal of danger trees that pose a threat to the public. The Planning Commission reviewed the amendments, held a public hearing on June 4th, 2019, and recommended that the Council approve the proposed amendments. The Land Use Committee reviewed these amendments on July 1st, 2019, and the amendments were reviewed at the July 16th City Council Work Study meeting. Staff recommends adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code Section 20.22, 20.140, and 20.150 to streamline and simplify the permit and review process for minor land disturbing activities and select tree cutting activities as presented.
Councilmember Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapters 20.22, 20.140, and 20.150 to streamline and simplify the permit and review process for minor land disturbing activities and select tree cutting activities as presented.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ashby. Any questions for Mr. Bond on this matter? I wouldn't mind asking what, so previously, if I remember correctly, we amended our code and it was more restrictive, made it more restrictive, but now some of these activities now we're making less restrictive, is that correct?
Correct. There are two types of land disturbing activity permits. There's a major, which is a type 2 decision, and a minor, which is a type 1 decision. The type 2 decision has an extra public notice component that includes posting a sign on the property, and it's over a certain threshold of activity. A type 1 permit is less than 2,000 square feet of disturbance, so that's, if you're building a single family residence, typically you're not disturbing much more than 2,000 square feet, or if you want to cut some trees down on your property, provided that they're not significant trees, you can cut them down with a minor land disturbing activity permit.
As well as leaving the stumps behind and not disturbing the soils
Correct.
when I read this, yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions for Mr. Bond on this matter? Okay. So we'll be voting on adoption of an ordinance for with revisions to Port Orchard Municipal Code clarifying requirements for minor land disturbing activity permits and tree cutting activities. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to item 7C, adoption of an ordinance adopting Chapter 20.100.130, on-site recreation space for subdivisions of Port Orchard Municipal Code. Mr. Bond.
The Department of Community Development has prepared a new section 20.100.130 to Chapter 20.100 of the Port Orchard Municipal Code to require new residential subdivisions to provide on-site recreational space for their residents. The Planning Commission reviewed the amendments, held a public hearing on June 4th, 2019, and recommended that the Council approve the proposed amendments. The Land Use Committee also reviewed the amendments on July 1st, and the amendments were brought to the City Council work study session on July 16th, 2019. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance as presented. And just a little side note on this one, when we adopted our new form-based zoning code in March, we went to smaller minimum lot sizes throughout the city, and one of the side effects of that was there's no longer an incentive to do clustered developments or planned unit developments where you provide on-site open space. So our goal here is to require that on-site open space be provided to sort of mitigate the impacts of these smaller lots when you're doing single-family and duplex-type development. We already had on-site open space requirements when you're doing apartments or multifamily-type projects, but not for single-family projects.
Lucarelli?
I move to adopt an ordinance adopting new section Port Orchard Municipal Code Chapters 20.100.130 to require new residential subdivisions to provide on-site recreational space for the residents as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Cacciardi. Any questions or comments? Mr. Diener?
I'd just like to compliment staff on the approach to this and how it wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach to recreational requirements, and there's lots of alternative approaches to accomplishing on-site open space recreational opportunities, and that they did a good job, I think, in grading the size of those depending on the size of the proposed development. So, well done.
Other comments or questions? Okay. You'll be voting on adopting an ordinance, chapters 20.00.130 for on-site recreation space for subdivisions in the Port Orchard Municipal Code. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to 7D, adoption of an ordinance adopting the revised 2019 zoning map. Mr. Bond.
A new zoning map and zoning code was adopted by the City Council in March of 2019. Since that time, staff has become aware of several zone designations that require correction. Churches that were accidentally missed when religious institutions were rezoned as civic and institutional, a park and public works property that were misdesignated, an area on the west side of Mitchell between Bay Street and Taylor that appears better suited for R3 than the R4 zone because of the small lots and existing single-family development pattern, and a church that is requested to have its undeveloped parcels rezoned from CI to commercial mixed use so that they can potentially be put to other uses. Public notice has been provided to property owners and other interested parties. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposed zoning map corrections and revisions and held a public hearing on June 4th, 2019, and recommended approval. The Land Use Committee reviewed the zoning map on July 1st, 2019, and it was reviewed at the City Council work study meeting on July 16th, 2019. Any conflicts between the zoning designations and the city's comprehensive plan designations will be resolved with the 2020 comprehensive plan update. Staff recommends adoption of an ordinance to adopt the revised 2019 city zoning map as presented.
Councilmember Kucharity.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance to adopt the revised 2019 city zoning map as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe seconded. Questions of Mr. Bond about the zoning map? I'm hearing none.
I would just make the comment for the audience that these are site-specific changes that have been requested by the property owners.
Other comments or questions?
I'll just add on to that, to be more reflective of the existing uses on the property.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, with that, to be voting on adopting the revised 2019 zoning map. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So the next item is adoption of resolution of intent related to House Substitute Bill 1406. Mr. Crocker is on vacation, and Rebecca Nichols was supposed to be here tonight to present this, but came in on crutches today, so I'm going to pitch it, and Councilmember Ashby said she'd help me out, so she's familiar with this. So during the 2019 regular session, the Washington State Legislature approved and the governor signed Substitute House Bill 1406. 1406 allows counties and cities the authority to impose a sales tax to fund various housing and services for persons whose income is at or below 60% of the median income for the county or city. The tax is basically a transfer of a portion of the state's existing sales tax to the county or city. It is not an additional tax and will not impact the consumer. The use of the tax is for the acquisition, construction, rehabilitation of affordable housing or facilities, providing supportive housing for the operations and maintenance costs of affordable housing or supportive housing, and for providing rental assistance to tenants. The resolution is the first step in a process into receiving the new tax revenue. The city will also need to adopt a plan for the use of these funds and an ordinance authorizing the maximum capacity of the tax. The city of Port Orchard estimates it will receive $42,000 annually at a 0.0073% rate, or $85,000 at a rate of 0.0146 rate if the county does not pursue the additional revenue, and I'm confident that the county will. So the staff's recommendation is approving the resolution of intent as provided. I know that I've been in discussions with Housing Kitsap and with Bremerton Housing Authority for proposals. I think it's not realistic with $42,000 annually that we're going to build houses, but we could but we could create a rental assistance program under your direction. So with that, Councilmember Ashby.
Yes, I move to adopt a resolution declaring the City of Port Orchard's intent to adopt legislation to authorize sales and use tax for affordable housing in accordance with House Bill 1406.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Chang. Any comments or questions? And this is step one in what will be a two-step process because we have to identify the use later this year. So.
And again, just to reiterate for the audience, this is not a new tax. It is simply a redirection of the portion the state gets. They're redirecting it back to the municipalities to be able to help with affordable housing. Yeah, and we do anticipate that all the jurisdictions in the county will adopt this, and we have a year to make our plan. So I think it's a good thing for everyone involved.
Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, be voting on a resolution of intent related to House Bill 1406. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're on to item F, adoption of a resolution supporting TIB 2019 Urban Arterial Program funding application for the Southwest Old Clifton Road, Anderson Hill Road Southwest intersection project. Mr. Dorsey.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, council members. For the 2019 Urban Arterial Program, funding applications for the Southwest Old Clifton Road, Anderson Hill Road Southwest intersection project, the Transportation Improvement Board, or TIB, requires a funding commitment letter from all funding partners. Therefore, by the August 16, 2019 deadline, the City of Port Orchard Public Works Department will be submitting a 2019 UAP, or Urban Arterial Program, funding application request in the amount of $1.6 million to the Transportation Improvement Board for the Southwest Old Clifton Road, Anderson Hill Road Southwest intersection project for the construction and construction support phases of the project. If successful, the TIB funding will be available to commence with the construction of the project in 2020. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 020-19, thereby supporting the 2019 Urban Arterial Program funding application for the Southwest Old Clifton Road, Anderson Hill Road Southwest intersection project as a requirement to obtain grant funding for a fully funded phase. And I'd like to note that, we've done this every year in the application process. We've not been successful in the past. I feel like this year we may be more successful because we have our right-of-way now completely secured. And when it comes to the funding, know that this is only crossing or checking a box in the application. If we were to receive funding in the fiscal impacts where there's the potential allocation of another $150,000 towards the project other than what we've got for it, that's a bridge that we'll cross at that time because we don't have to accept the funding. This is just so that we can submit the application.
Fairly certain that traffic impact fees would be an eligible source of funding for that.
Right, we have two funds that we've already utilized. One is the Bayside mitigation fee for the project on Anderson Hill Road, and then we have the McCormick transportation, or the transportation impact fees.
Councilmember Kuchardi.
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution thereby supporting the 2019 Urban Arterial Program funding application for the Southwest Old Clifton Road, Anderson Hill Road Southwest intersection project as a requirement to obtain grant funding for a fully funded project phase.
Second. Second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe. Any questions or comments on this matter? Okay. We got Tremont done. We need another transportation project.
And I think just to add on to what Mark had said, that additional $150,000 would be to get the state's allocation below the 85% threshold.
Yes. Yeah, we have to have a match.
Exactly.
All right, you'll be voting to support the TIB application for the Old Clifton Anderson Hill Road intersection improvements. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're to 7G, approval of change orders number 25, 26, and 27 to contract number 037-17 with Active Construction, Inc. for the Tremont Widening Project. It's all built. Why do we have to keep paying, Mark?
Are we done?
No. We have another week and a half or so of punch list items, and then it's a federalized project, so the closeout of the project we'll be into September, October before we're done bringing items to the council, be my guess. So with that, on July 23rd, 2019, the Port Orchard City Council authorized change order number 24 for contract 03717 with Active Construction, thereby bringing the current value of all change orders to date to a total of $1.7 million, or 170.8% of the contingency value, which was $1 million. Tonight's action is for the approval of change orders 25, which was the additional asphalt at Canyon Court and then at Pottery. To get a better product there. That was $78,863.95. Change order 26 was the ADA compliant truncated domes, which was quite a hassle to get approved, but the product that we have down there, I think we're going to be, a lot of people are going to be looking at this. It was almost like a thermoplastic applied truncated dome, which is a lot better than these plates that we were dealing with some curb issues. So we're going to monitor that. And then the big one was a change order that's been kind of on the books for a number of times, long time, 27. That had to do with the embankment compaction compensation for the use of native materials. That was $38,577. So approval of these change orders brings the current value of all change orders to date to $1.85 million, or 185.3%, again, of the $1 million contingency. And then the city CACM, TIM, and contractors continue the cost to complete value. Right now, we're still between 1.2 and 1.3. We hope to have that number by the end of the week. And as you know, even though I left that sentence in there that we continue to look for additional money, we did get an additional 1.3 million. So we're just waiting to get that the authorization to obligate probably in September, by the time it goes through the process with PSRC and WSDOT. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute change orders 25 through 27 with Active Construction in an amount not to exceed $145,010.18.
Councilmember Dean.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute change orders 25 through 27 with Active Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $145,010.18.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe. Any questions or comments for Mr. Dorsey?
Again, just for the public here, I just, again, thank you to mayor and staff for your continued efforts to go find those supplemental funds. I mean, this was a huge project, and some of these overruns, for you to find the additional funding through PSRC was fantastic. So thank you.
All right, with that, to be voting on the change orders for the Tremont project with Active Construction, Inc. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to 7H, Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Grantee. Mr. Bond.
On July 29, 2019, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development notified the city that it is now eligible as a Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Grantee. This notice provided the city with 4 options concerning its future participation in the CDBG program as follows. Option 1, accept status as an entitlement grantee and receive a direct annual formula allocation of CDBG funds starting in fiscal year 2020. Option 2, accept status as an entitlement grantee and enter into a joint agreement with Kitsap County. Under this option, HUD would calculate a separate entitlement grant amount for Port Orchard, and those funds would be awarded to Kitsap County for distribution to the city in accordance with the joint agreement. Option 3, defer status as an entitlement community and continue as part of Kitsap County, Urban County for another 3-year qualification period, 2020 to 2022. And Option 4, defer status as an entitlement grantee and participate through the state CDBG program. The city is required to provide its response to HUD by August 23, 2019. The estimated entitlement amount to the city is $113,000 annually. CDBG funds may be used for activities which include but are not limited to acquisition of real estate, relocation and demolition, rehabilitation of residential and non-residential structures, construction of public facilities and improvements, public services within certain limits, activities related to energy conservation and renewable energy resources, and provision of assistance to profit-motivated business to carry out economic development and job creation and retention. The CDBG funding comes with strings attached and would introduce a significant new responsibility to the city. Program requirements include developing a consolidated plan, preparing an annual action plan, developing a citizen participation plan, developing a funds allocation process, complying with federal funding requirements, annual reporting requirements, audits by HUD, and cumbersome accounting requirements. The recommendation is that we pursue option 3 at least for the next 3 years and continue exploring option 2 beyond 2022. The city should also consider participating in the next update of the Kitsap County Consolidated Plan and apply for funding during those upcoming cycles.
So what, myself and, actually the city and the county were kind of caught off guard about a week and a half ago. We got a letter from HUD informing us that we are now a principal city, which the only other one in the county is Bremerton. And
Bainbridge is?
Bainbridge is, and we believe it's because of it's not just population, it's jobs, and the county campus provides a significant number of jobs in our city. And so we didn't expect this. We've always been participated in the county's program because we were eligible to have our own program. It'd be nice to have our own program, but we're just not equipped at this time. It would require staff, and there's a whole bunch of reporting requirements. So Nick and I are recommending that we continue the status quo. We have a 3-year window. We have a window every 3 years to change this. Bremerton opts to run their own program, but their allocation of dollars is much larger than ours. And we'd like to have in the next couple of years to develop a program and then have the county manage our program. They would charge us probably, a 20% management fee, but that prevents us from having to hire a staff member to do that. And then in turn, we would have most of this $113,000, at least currently, and maybe more in the future for us to manage. We can do. It has to be in the lower income areas of our city. So we could do sidewalk projects. We could do housing, sewer, water, utility projects, stormwater projects. So there's many areas in our city that will qualify for it, and then we're able to, versus having to apply to the county, we're going to be able to manage our own program, directly appropriate those, and then the county would then in turn report for us. But we just don't have enough time with our deadline from HUD with this late notice to put our own program together. It's just not, we have too many other priorities going on. So that's kind of the backstory. Councilmember Lucarelli?
I move that the City of Port Orchard notify the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development of the city's preference for option 3, deferring status as an entitlement community and continuing as part of the Kitsap County Urban County for 2020 to 2022.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Diener. Any more questions?
No, my comment would be that I appreciate the 3 years to learn more about it. And I think it's incumbent on us with this small amount of money, $113,000, is not to spend it all in administration. The intent is to help people. And so that's why I, right now, would prefer to do status quo and have an opportunity to understand the program better.
Councilmember Diener?
Mr. Mayor, I note that the activity must meet one of several goals, and one of them is to prevent or eliminate slums or blight. And then the second bullet down on how funds may be used references relocation and demolition. And I'm curious if demolition could include nuisance structures or nuisance abatement, for example, homes that have been abandoned and are being used for illicit means and so on. And if that would be eligible.
We just learned about this in the last week or so, and those are great questions. And as we develop a program, those could be very appropriate uses. So we've got an ADA transition plan we're trying to fund, and to fund new sidewalks in a lower income area of our city would be, I think, a great use of them. Improved utilities that could, improve the neighborhood, or as you're saying, blighted structures, if we're gonna do something with a code enforcement action. I think we're all great uses, but we're just not equipped today to launch a program of our own. Yes, sir.
And then I had another question about what is the funding difference between options 1 and 2? Obviously, number 2 requires working with Kitsap County, and you said that was a 20%.
It's the same dollars. It's just the reporting requirements. The county's got they have staff and the mechanisms to administer this all in place, where we would have to hire somebody, and for $25,000, I can't pay a staff. Yeah. I can't hire a body.
Got it.
So that's, I think, until this is, initially, I think we want to partner with the county, and I think we should always be looking for opportunities to partner with other jurisdictions for administrative services.
Thank you.
Just to reiterate what Councilmember Ashby said, it sounds like we are limited in both options 1 and 2 to not taking more than 20% in administration fees. In the first, the city would take it, and the second, the county would keep 20%. So I don't think we can use more than that.
Okay.
Yes, you're right. So, as I stated in the motion, do we have a motion on the floor, don't we?
We do.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor, that, for option 3, and I think that's the proper course.
That is the motion.
Yep, so, all right, with that, any further questions? Okay, we'll be voting on a motion for option 3 what are we on here? The Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Process. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to our last 2 business items. First of which is approval of the July 16th, 2019 Council Work Study Minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Councilmember Rosapepe.
I move to approve the July 16th, 2019 Council Work Study Session minutes.
Motion? Second.
A second by Councilmember Lucarelli. Okay, I'll have one abstention by Councilmember Cacciardi. Any corrections or comments on those work study minutes? Okay, hearing none, be voting to approve the July 16th Council Work Study Minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the work study minutes are approved. We are to 7J, approval of the July 23rd council meeting minutes. Is there a motion? Councilmember Rosapepe.
I move to approve the July 23rd, 2019 council meeting minutes.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cacciardi. I'll have an abstention, I believe, by Councilmember Diener. So any discussion of those minutes or corrections? All in favor of approving the July 23rd council meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the council meeting minutes are approved. We are to our next item, which is a discussion item. I hope everybody is aware, we were the top-rated project in the Public Facilities District's rankings for projects. Brandy, if you could put that single page with the yellow highlights on it on the projector. I passed a couple of documents out to the council members. This document with a couple of there's some additions on the back page and actually some highlighted points is what I brought to the Economic Development Committee. Just kind of after the meeting, we were ranked number 1, but really what does that mean? What are the dollars associated with that? We don't have answers to that yet. And that the Public Facilities District staff has been directed to draft an ILA with our staff so that they can provide us funding. The first highlighted point there, though, funding for a study, which they were offering upwards to $500,000 to us that evening. aren't going to be enough to move the master plan project forward. We really need to have a commitment from the PFD for the entire, whatever their entire commitment is going to be. And I've got a few bullets there that I talked over with the Economic Development Committee. County Commissioner Garrido attended that meeting, and since then I've had another meeting with her on the subject matter. I have asked the county, I know the PFD, and we'll get to that in a moment. Beck Ashby attended the PFD meeting last night, and I've asked the county to do some analysis on the PFD's bonding capacity, and they have agreed to do so, that they'll embark on that. I've got a bullet in here, if we're to bond that, what our bonding capacity is. I'm not saying that we should be. I would really like to see us to limit our contribution to our staff time to manage this project and process. We have 2 other public partners, and through this ILA process, we need to determine what the roles are of the ownership, what the roles are, and the contribution of responsibilities, everyone. We've got a lot of details to work out. On the back, if you flip that page over, and I think this is fairly accurate. Maybe you'd like to speak to this, Councilmember Ashby. You were at the meeting last night. This is kind of my notes from what you shared with me today. Okay. And do they make sense, or you want me to?
Right. Well, I can just address it. At the meeting, at the Public Facilities District meeting last evening, they had a bond advisor, a financial bond advisor, give them a presentation. And I do have that PowerPoint. And if any council members would like, I would be glad to forward it to you. I can forward it to Brandy and she can send it out.
Yeah, please.
They offered, the advisor offered different scenarios. And if the Public Facilities District issued their own bonds, and under a scenario of no growth, that's a sales tax growth, sale and use tax growth, they could bond approximately $10 million. With a conservative 3% sales and use tax growth, their bonding would be about $15 million. If they partnered with the county and used the county as the bonding recipient, or the owner, the issuer, that number goes up to about $20 million. Now, they did offer another scenario that is a little more, I don't know if the word's complicated I want to use to explain, but if the various jurisdictions did their own bonding or did their own financing, the PFD could contribute to that repayment source, and that would then about $30 million would be eligible. There were a lot of, and that was with a 3% growth. That was the maximum. That was the most aggressive growth they had, and the largest dollar amount available. But there were a lot of questions that were not discussed on what that would look like. So realistically, I think the Public Facilities District will have somewhere between $15 million and $20 million for this activity that they're going through.
And so, go ahead. I was just going to offer, and at that meeting, Kitsap Bank had a representative at that meeting. I've talked to them today, and actually this cash contribution scenario actually appeals to them and this project. We, over the other projects, we have the added benefit of having Kitsap Bank in our project. And I'm not saying they will, but they could be or may be willing to finance the project once we get to the point where we have a project designed. And that's one of the things we have to remember. That nobody could bond these projects right now. Nobody's got a, you can't bond an idea. You've got to have a bid-ready project to be able to go out to bond on anything. So the next document, so anyway, the recommendation from the individual I talked to at Kitsap Bank was, we should pursue this cash contribution scenario, which allows for the higher dollar amounts. And so,
With that said, I wonder if the PFD will do individual projects, or if, when they make a decision about bonding, like if they partner with the county and do the 20 million, does everyone have to participate in that? Or will the jurisdictions be able to pick and choose? I mean, we don't know. It's just really open right now.
That's right. Councilmember Charlie.
Question I had, Beck, did they give any, the bond council, just these variances are just astounding to go from 150% to 200% to 300%. Did they give any idea of the rate changes between the different jurisdictions and their bonding capacity?
He did not talk about rate changes. He talked about the growth, the sales and use tax growth, and he talked about the reserve requirement. And it went from 1.25 to 1.4, and that's where you saw a lot of changes, where you saw the fluctuations. I will email that PowerPoint to Brandy, and she can get it to you.
So with us needing to develop an ILA, Nick and I have been working very hard on this next document, which the initial application to the PFD was for $13 million on a $20 million project. And, you know, with the numbers we've heard, I don't believe we're going to get $13 million. And so I've scaled, but if you go through what we need to accomplish, we can't scale it back by much. So I've scaled the request back by $1 million to $12 million. So with your, I guess, heads nodding here this evening, this is a draft document. I don't know that the PFD is going to award us this, but we've got, I believe we need to set the bar high in our ask and not sell ourselves short. I still believe this is a $16 to $20 million project, and anything that is any shortfall in what we don't get from the PFD, we're going to have to raise, whether it be, from sort of a levy here locally or through grants or capital appropriations from the legislature. We're already looking at needing to raise $5 to $7 million, and that's not going to be a small feat. So what we're proposing is, you can see the tasks and deliverables that we want to outline. Over the first 9 to 12 months, we're going to ask for an allocation of $400,000 from the PFD to accomplish outreach, planning, and cost estimations. You want me to pause in each one of these sections so you have a chance to read that and ask questions?
Mayor, I'm missing a copy somewhere.
I had an extra, and I wondered where it went, and I'm terribly sorry. It's in this mess of papers. Terribly sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just as not to sidetrack this too much, but is there the possibility that the top three candidates could get together and talk about what their split might look like, so it takes the guesswork out of this for PFD?
We've had some communication. I've reached.
I mean, work cooperatively?
Yeah.
And that might be where that $400,000 number came from. Because they have about $1.5 million in their checking account, and they need some operating money. And if we got the $500,000 to $700,000 they were offering, there wasn't anything left in there today for the other projects. So we tried to carve this up in a manner that works maybe for everybody.
Okay, good.
They did, just at last evening's meeting, their attorney did talk about the interlocal agreement and the work they've been doing on it. And because there are 3 jurisdictions that are entering into an interlocal agreement, there will be a template so that there's consistencies among the 3. But there will be a section in there that is specific to our asks and our deliverables. And
that's what we're trying to address.
And that's what this is, correct. And they were, from the dais, they were very concerned about knowing exactly how the money would be spent and what the deliverables would be. So I think the work you have done here is appropriate and very good.
And so, moving on to that, thank you, and moving on to the second task, you can see that we're preparing 60% designs, cost estimates, shoreline permits, and we're expecting that to take 9 to 12 months. The third phase, we're estimating, we don't know what it's gonna cost to acquire the property there. I'm hopeful that the port's going to donate property, but they haven't offered that yet because they own some of this property. So we're estimating $1 million for property acquisition. And then task 4 is an additional $500,000 and a task for 6 to 12 months for ad-ready construction documents and complete applications for development. At this point, we are only doing the community center. We're going to have 3, at the beginning of this, we're looking at the shoreline restoration, we're looking at a pier next to the community center, and we're going to pursue those as separate projects because there's Parks and Recs grants, there's grants from ecology for stormwater or shoreline restoration, and if we lump all this together, it'll make those other grants tougher to get. So if we carve those pieces out, we can focus on building a building and the costs associated with building a building, and then pursue those other projects separately as city projects. The last deliverable is task 5, and at that point we'll know whether we have a 16, 17, 20 or a $20 million project, and we're asking for the PFD to fund $9.5 million at that point for all of these tasks totaling $12 million from the PFD.
3 years later.
Yeah. But it's important that we engage with the community and find out, we know, I'm using the Village Greens in Kingston as a model, and it's about 30,000 square feet. We know we need a library. I see Kathleen Wilson here, of about 10,000 square feet. We need, the bank's asks is for this master plan to move forward. If they're gonna move their corporate campus here, that there needs to be, meeting and event space to support this master plan project. And the last third is we don't know at this point. In Kingston, it's the Boys and Girls Club and a small space for seniors. And if we're going to ask our community to support this in some fashion, we need to engage with them in this task 1 and find out what it is our community wants if we're going to move forward with this.
Mayor, quick question. First time I've seen this document. I'm assuming this contemplates city ownership of the facility.
Or the partners.
Okay, one of the partners. And then number
Or,
2.
or the group of partners that's yet to be determined.
I don't see anything in here about assessing what the operating costs of this facility could be, or even looking beyond that, just as far as, capital improvements, repairs, depreciation. So I'd like to see something in here, some sort of a study to be able to take a look at that. I think before we would ever want to take a bite off of investing in something or looking at bonds, we would want to understand that.
I don't have a copy in front of me, but I
Nick doesn't
believe
have
it
a
was
copy.
under task 2.
I know we discussed that, and you're absolutely correct.
It's under 2.
It's under 2.
2.3.
There we go. Operations, cost, and maintenance responsibilities. Yes. Thank you. The deliverables determine estimated facility operating costs and tenant responsibilities. Work with the partners to identify the operational cost responsibilities. Because we could have to have up to 3 owners or more. Maybe the library wants to own part of it.
Right.
But they're definitely a tenant in this. And what are the tenants contributing to the operational costs to the building?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're looking beyond just the cost of construction, and that we're looking into the future and what this really looks like, and what our obligations are on an operating, on a standard.
Because we know, like this 20-year-old building, 20 years from now, I bet the roof's going to need a repair, and the windows too. So, Councilmember Chang?
Looking at that map, and I know that's just a rough...
It's a rendering, yes.
Rendering. It sounds like what we're talking about here is just one of those buildings. We're not talking about all 4.
Correct. It is the one farthest
northwest,
to the left. Yes,
the most
it's kind of
northwest
green
building.
in color.
Okay.
The rest of them are
All
the
privately owned or developed?
Privately
Okay.
owned and developed. We're only talking about the community center, which is
Okay.
about a 30,000 square foot building.
It's interesting because we heard the whole concept at once, and so it may be difficult for people to realize that we're not talking about everything, but just one of the buildings. And I think the thought is that if we, when we succeed with this, it will encourage the other lots to be developed privately.
Yeah. We have a bit of a chicken and egg situation here. We've got a developer, Sound West Group, that has assembled I believe all of the parcels for that master plan development. And within that master plan development is 50,000 square feet of commercial office space. And that's planned as the headquarters for Kitsap Bank. And
they would be paying for that, not us.
correct, they're paying for that, and this entire master plan project is estimated at $120 million and brings 150 jobs to downtown. And the bank so the developer won't move forward until the bank signs a development agreement. The bank isn't comfortable doing that, and they feel like they, in the first phase would be the only major employer downtown, and to make that type of a commitment, they feel they need to have, meeting and banquet space to support a development of this size moving forward. So that's they're until we can get a firm commitment from the PFD to fund this at a reasonable level. They're reluctant to sign the development agreement to move the master plan project forward. If I can get the PFD to make a commitment, I believe I can get the bank to sign the development agreement with the developer, and then the project moves forward ahead of our project, obviously with at least a 3-year timeline. Councilmember Roseveppe?
So with the chicken or the egg approach, this is all great, what you've laid out. So my question is, where within the 3 years that Councilman Diener added up would be the commitment from PFD for the funds?
I'm looking for the commitment as soon as possible.
Okay, so you could see that as happening.
We're not in control of that.
No, I know, we're not, but, the process has gone a long ways already, and so did they discuss at all about that last night?
No, but I'll tell you my personal opinion.
Sure.
I would hope that the interlocal agreement that we entered into would provide funding for the tasks that are laid out here, which includes task 5, and that's the commitment for the construction funding. I think it's hard, just for me personally, for the PFD to spend $1.5 million for studies and property acquisition and that sort of thing without committing to the construction funding doesn't make sense. So I would hope that as each box is checked off, that at the end, if all the boxes are checked, the construction funding would be available. And that's just their portion. There will still be over half of it that will have to come from different sources. The other thing that I want to say, and then I'll be quiet, is again referencing the chicken and the egg of this, in that this whole thing kind of germinated with business people getting together and say, what's the best we can do with this property? And there has not been a public portion of that yet. So that piece is very important to me, because it has moved from a privately funded to this one section, this one small piece of this pie is public money now. And so it needs public input, it needs public vetting. And so that's the piece that I'm looking forward, and that's all part of task 1. So that's right up front.
Thank you.
All right. So if, with your, I guess, heads nodding, are we comfortable with me? I have no doubt that, I might get some pushback from the Public Facilities District Board. I'm planning on being at their meeting in 2 weeks, and I'd like to get this out to their executive director and attorney this week, if at all possible, is our framework for the tasks and deliverables that we'd like to see and the funding commitment we're asking for from the city of Port Orchard.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. All right, we are done with that. We are to our council committee reports. Finance Committee has not met, and with Councilmember Clausen gone, we're probably not going to get a date on the calendar for that committee. Economic Development Tourism, you met just recently.
We did. We met on August 5th. County Commissioner Charlotte Garrido joined us, along with Matt Murphy from the Chamber and Jack Edwards from Days Inn. Much of our agenda that day has been covered here already. Our first item of business was the plastic bag reduction ordinance, and that was reviewed, and we held the public hearing tonight. The other second item on our agenda was a recap of the Public Facility District meeting, which had taken place the end of July. Not the one this week, but not the one last night, but the previous one. We went through that, and that has all been recapped again. We then viewed the progress of the 3 videos that we're working on, and that's all moving forward. We liked where we are with the videos. We're hoping to bring them for full council review pretty soon. We did ask that some new footage of the Tremont roundabouts in Rockwell Park be they had taken some nice drone coverage of Tremont, but it was
Not quite open.
well, there were still construction workers in it, so it would be
And
nice.
no striping and cars and
Yeah,
things of that
so
nature.
it would be nice, and all of the plants weren't put in at Rockwell Park yet, so we're hoping to get that updated, and then we will bring that to full council, probably at a work study to take a look at. And then we went on and we had some items involving Ltac and our lodging tax, and I will go ahead and defer those to Councilman Rose Pepe's report on Ltac. And we'll be meeting again September 7th. We meet here in council chambers at 9:30.
Okay. Councilmember Lucarelli, Utility Committee.
Yes, so we met and we had an update meeting mostly on the Stormwater Comprehensive Plan, the Geiger Blueberry Sewer Service Area, the McCormick issues. In the interest of time, because we have so much going on here tonight, I will give a more detailed update next week at the council meeting. Our next meeting is September 16th, and it will be here at City Hall, 9:30 a.m.
Sewer Advisory Committee, do you have a report for them?
No, we meet this week.
Tomorrow. Okay, perfect. Land use, I don't believe's met, but August 26th is your
Yep.
next meeting?
At DCD?
Yes.
We were going to discuss the possibility of an additional meeting. Do we want to do that just after the meeting, or?
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
we'll do that.
Sure.
Let's just quick huddle after the meeting.
Okay.
Get the September date identified.
Perfect. Lodging tax, Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
So, to follow up what Councilman Ashby was doing at our meeting, Economic Development, so Brandy had brought to our attention that we were down a member, and I believe that the mayor has been looking for additional members to join us.
Jack Edwards said he would do that outreach for me, and we haven't heard back from him yet. We have.
Okay.
And is it positive, or?
Yes, absolutely. So we'll have both Comfort Inn and Days Inn participating in the Lodging Tax Committee this year.
Perfect. And then that allows me to bring a recommendation to you guys at, probably not next week, but
We're ready for next week if you are.
perfect. I'm ready.
Okay.
If you're ready.
And we are, and we have a timeline. Do you have the dates before you with what we decided for the applications?
Yes. Yes, so the lodging tax application will be available online this week. It'll be open until, I believe, the first part of September, with a committee meeting the week of September 23rd. So you can look at our website for additional information.
And since we have a biennium budget, we have a number that we're looking to use the lodging tax for, and we'll get the committee going.
Perfect. Okay. I don't have any outside agency reports. They haven't met. number of things on my mayor's report, but I'll get through them as quickly as I can. I've had a number of complaints about parking on the Old Clifton regarding out by our new McCormick Village Park that is very popular. And I've observed it also. We need to get an updated parking ordinance before you, but I don't believe we can wait to put some signs up to discourage parking out there. So Mark and I talked today about that very matter, and as long as I had heads nodding here tonight, we're gonna move forward with no parking signs out on the shoulder there. There just isn't enough room on the shoulder. I'm concerned at the speed limits out there that somebody's gonna get hit on the shoulder. And there's a lot of kids visiting there, so that's concerning to me. So we'll be bringing, I doubt it'll be next week, probably the first week meeting in September. We'll try to work on having that updated parking resolution before you. It's a large document, and it's not easy to just make some changes too quickly. So, but we'll get those signs up before then. Steve Havert, our IT person, has brought to our attention, he's done some research. We were gonna need to replace our switches for our fiber, and our backbone goes through the county. When we looked into this, we could save about $800 a month if we went with Wave, and so we're gonna buy different switches instead of the ones to the county. And I administratively have already signed that contract, and in the next 90 days, the fiber's already out here. We've just gotta reroute it, put different switches in it, and our internet travel will go traffic will go through the county, no longer through the county, but through Wave. So we've been growing here as a city and with a number of city vehicles, and we've got a couple handicap stalls that we plan to leave alone, but there's 3 public stalls down here about by the police department, and one of them is problematic because it's right in front of the stairs, and if a vehicle parks over it, their bumper is blocking the first step on the stairs. And so the plan is to make that no parking there so pedestrians can get down the stairs, for one. And then the other 2 stalls, provide one of them to the police department for our expanding police fleet, and one of them to the Public Works Department. And so I just wanted to, so I would say in the next month or so, we won't have those public parking stalls down here in front of City Hall, and I know sometimes council members use those, so I just wanted to make you aware of that. We still do have the gravel lot across the street that you're welcome to use also. So chimes, they broke last Christmas, and all the parts and pieces are here, and we're working towards getting them installed in the next 60 days or so. We'll start first with chimes on the hour like we had before, and then work through a process for what music we're going to play and when. And we definitely want the music up and running for Christmas, but we'll start with chimes first as soon as we get the speakers and the equipment all installed. And that's one of our electricians' next priorities after a sewer lift station that needs a new generator. Council members, I talked to Councilmember Clausen recently. As council members, you all have a $10,000 life insurance policy, and the carrier of that is canceled that policy. So I made Councilmember Clausen aware of that, and he said, "Well, do some research." So our HR person found another policy that would not only cover the council members, but would also cover all the non-reps, not for $10,000, but for $100,000 through our insurance provider, AWC, and the cost would be citywide $50. We thought that was fairly reasonable. The only challenge or problem with that new policy is, as council members, you can't receive any benefit until after you've been elected or re-elected. So it won't go into effect until for 4 of you till after November's election, and then for the remaining 3 of you 2 years later. But I was thankful Debbie did that research. I have a requirement to report to you when I make changes to our personnel policies, and with our new union contracts, we negotiated the language in our personnel policies related to bereavement was inconsistent to the new union contracts. The new contracts allow if your sister or brother-in-law passed away, you could attend the service and use bereavement leave. And now those contracts state that, so our policies need to state that. We've had a few things going on out in the McCormick Woods area that our land use attorney has been working on, and her billings the last couple of months have been significantly higher. She has a annual contract limit, and we're quickly approaching that limit, so I'm going to be bringing a contract amendment for you, probably not next week, but the first week in September. And lastly, remember that we don't have a work study this month. We have a business meeting next week and no meeting the fourth week of the month. So that's the end of my report. And department heads, Mr. Dorsey, nothing? Mr. Bond?
Yeah, just one announcement. I emailed all of you about 2 weeks ago about the release of Draft Vision 2050. That's the regional plan for Puget Sound. There's a lot of policy language in here that is going to affect us. I've read the entire document as of today. I finally finished it. I generally think that it's compatible with the things that we're already doing. I don't see a whole lot of burden to the city there, but there's, I would definitely encourage you to read it. We're going to be discussing it at the next council meeting, and my hope is that any direction in terms of a comment letter that we send to PSRC we can get done at the next meeting, because I'm supposed to be at training at our September council meeting, and that's the last meeting before our deadline.
Yeah, when are the comments due?
I believe it's September 16th,
Okay.
but it's mid-September for sure, but I'm not sure of the exact date.
Sharon?
Nothing for me tonight.
Okay. Brandy?
So I have been approached by a few members of the public asking if the council would reconsider putting the retail pet sale ordinance back onto the agenda. They believe that with the new change in the adoption with the city of Gig Harbor and Kitsap County, that the city of Port Orchard would also be interested in revisiting the ordinance. So staff is looking for direction as the council if they would like to bring this to a committee to reconsider and review the current ordinances on the books, or if you would like to bring it to a work study. Staff's looking for direction.
And we don't have a work study this month, so.
I'd like to see it at work study, and I'd like to see a piece of legislation that's similar to the county's.
You want to see that at your land use committee first, or you want to see it at the work study?
Work study's fine, I think.
Okay, so
It's something I think we're all.
September would be the soonest.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to add on to that, you just talked about this land use issues and attorney fees. Can we get an estimate of just kind of staff and attorney time to be able to bring this to the, to the finish line? I just want to make sure that, we're aware that we don't have unlimited resources, and that as we prioritize kind of our actions as a council, that we're aware of, the costs associated with it, and we can help prioritize these things.
So it sounds like I had direction to bring that to possibly the September work study and put that on the agenda. Am I seeing others wishing that? Fred, then seeing Fred's head shaking. Sean, okay. That's 3 of 6, so there's 4. Okay. Now I have 4. Thank you. All right. Anything else, Brandy?
That's all I have.
Okay. All right. And then I just like, before we do our public comment, I'm going to read something into the record here. I understand many of you are here regarding the Bay Street pedestrian path this evening, and I'd like to make a statement for the record. The city of Port Orchard has never received a formal request from the owners of Whiskey Gulch to move our multimodal path to the water side of their property. If they were to make such a request, the city would gladly consider it. But we are aware of a Phase 1 ESA, or environmental records search, that was performed by Kitsap Transit for their project on the adjoining property. This research indicates that contaminants may exist on the Whiskey Gulch site. Should the city move forward on potentially moving the path to the water side of the property, the owner would need to provide access to the property so the city could perform additional environmental testing. In the event that contaminants were found on the property, the owner would be responsible for the environmental cleanup, similar to what was done at the Titus Ford site at the base of our bridge across Blackjack Creek. If our testing finds no environmental concerns, then our engineering staff could evaluate routes on the waterward side of the property. This route would also require that the owner provide easements necessary to facilitate the pathway. So I just want to clarify that for the record. So with that, we're going to open up our citizen comment period, and Brandy, each person needs to identify themselves for the record, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes. So.
Can I comment regarding your statement before I begin?
You're entitled to 3 minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay. We come to you today in disbelief that our city elects have disregarded the wants and needs of the Annapolis community. The lack of transparency regarding the pedestrian pathway in Annapolis is disconcerting at best, and the taking of property is an unreasonable and disproportionate endeavor. In addition, the takings completely contradict a council decision in 2014 where the council voted to not implement eminent domain for the pathway. Development is coming, and as a contractor, I am selfishly all for it. But when our council is working more for developers instead of its citizens and local businesses, bad things will happen, the gentrification of our community will happen, and the soul of our community squashed. The council and mayor are our elected caretakers of our city, and their first priority is looking out for residents and local businesses and making sure the development coming our way is being implemented in a manner that allows for them to be accounted for during that process and not disregarded as mere collateral damage. They've carried this city for decades in many cases, and we all deserve this respect and protection you're elected to do. This trail will cause irrevocable damage and eliminate all of Whiskey Gulch's frontage parking, loss of ADA access, loss of our front entrance, loss of additional parking in our west lots. Charities and like events will no longer be able to be supported, our side lots no longer viable for development, inadequate parking, tax revenues will no longer be generated, and Whiskey Gulch will be no more. Most importantly, the jobs of so many will be lost to 14 feet of concrete because the city could not work amiably with its constituents to find progressive solutions. Why? Because of a concrete trail that creates no jobs, no revenues, and no tax base, and they didn't care. We at Whiskey Gulch have reached out to find amicable solutions. Maybe not formally, but we have met with the mayor in his office with his public works director. Upon our last effort with both my business partner and lawyer, we were told by Mr. Mark Dorsey, and I quote, "I don't mean to be a dick, but you're going to have to deal with it," and suggested with his years of restaurant management experience to just put out some chairs and umbrellas. As we inform our quite unknowing community, we now find our mayor, after a great address from Senator Kilmer Thursday with ideologies and supporting small business and local jobs, inappropriately suggesting at our local chamber luncheon that mistruths were being spread via social media and not to believe everything you read. Funny, the looming regulatory takings completely contradicts Senator Kilmer and his words of wisdom, with a loss of approximately 50 jobs and the demise of small businesses. It's what the city isn't sharing with the public where the mistruths lie, and to that point, we have suggested to all that they file their own public records requests with no outside influence and get the facts for themselves. At the end of the day, there are other viable solutions, and we want to work with our city council and mayor. We want to be a part of a community where its local government reaches out to those affected. A city that would find the ignored community has a lot to offer them if our local elects would just wake up and remember who they serve. They would find that the community would be more than likely to be their best ally and rally around them if they just actually cared. I don't mean to be a dick, but you've given us no other alternatives, and here we are today.
Others wishing to address the council this evening?
Hi, my name is Dougherty. I own the proper Salon and Barber, and then also Stay Gold right next door to it, the old Josephine's building. It's pretty hard getting up here. I don't have a speech prepared, but what I don't like is there doesn't seem to be transparency with what's going on with the project. We have 17 families that I have to consider, children, their mortgages. I need to know, are you gonna tear into the front of my building? Are you gonna tear my building down? I need to know all this stuff right away because I can't just move into any building without the right electrical stuff and lots of planning. I put my heart and soul into the businesses it's really hard to take a building that's probably one of the oldest standing in Port Orchard. My building was built in 1910, the other one 30s, 40s. It takes a lot of work. I'm proud of those buildings, and I'm proud to keep them going and being a part of this community and being considered the most successful salon and barber tattoo shop around. What I'd like is some clear stuff that we could work on, or not tear our Annapolis neighborhood down. We're talking 0.6 miles. I think we could easily make a nice walkway, a trail, a sidewalk. If we had a bike lane in my business and all these businesses were allowed to stand, you're gonna ride your bike and you're gonna get a door. You're gonna hit someone. I have parking lots where people drive out of. We're already tight on parking space all through Port Orchard. There should probably be a parking study downtown. I didn't move downtown because I have so many employees that I can't put here. I don't know when we do these different projects if we think about the parking situations or the different things that go on into them, but it's something to consider, like, what should we do about parking? What should we do about people that are paying taxes and are loyal to this community? It's important stuff to think about, and we want to work together. I'm not against a trail. I know, like, in other parts of our town, we have basically bike lanes that it shows you the little markings on the road, and maybe we can make a transition where the people that don't want to sell, we can just maybe do some lights, the little flags. We have different options that we've done throughout our town that are would probably save a lot of money. Some of that money that you guys are looking to get in other places, I don't know if you could transfer it, but you don't maybe have to spend the whole loan. You could use that to apply back to the loan. You don't have to go so crazy with some of it, but I hope that you guys would consider saving, our businesses. It means a lot, and I really need to know, like, how to prepare for that. I needed to know how to prepare to start it, and it's important. It's vital. I don't want to lose my home. I want to keep my kids here in this town. I want all my other people to feel safe, and I need answers. Thank you, guys.
Others wishing to address the council?
Pardon?
If you could just lower the microphone and identify yourself for the record.
How's that?
Perfect. We can hear you now.
Okay. My name's Renee Curtoni. My siblings and I are the owners of property that Alvin was just speaking of. We have property next to that also that has a salon in it. I'm here to address the concerns we have over the impact of the Pathway project. Maybe it's been a good decade since, against our wishes, we were annexed into Port Orchard with flowery talk of upgraded infrastructure like storm drains and sidewalks. We've since received regular billing for storm drains that still do not exist, no sidewalks. The county took better care of Bay Street. Now, contrary to prior reassurance, we receive information that this pathway is to majorly impact our property, our parking, our jobs. In our buildings at present, there exist 2 tax-paying businesses. The owners have time and money invested in, plus 2 rear residential units. Over a dozen or so tax-paying citizens whose livelihoods and families stand to be impacted in what seems to be a negative way for a path that creates no revenue, no permanent jobs. After much study and discussion, many of the Bay Street folks believe the city has the ability to adjust. Hopefully, as this moves forward, there could be some consideration and compromise rather than unnecessary litigation. It's really annoying to have to get up here and defend people that are making a community a better place, defend my property, my family's property that's had it for, one building since the 80s and the other since 90s. You look across the street, you've got a building, and I'm not hating on people, but there are unlicensed businesses running out of the storage unit. At least 3 units where people are living 24/7, no facilities. They go to the creek next door, Arnold Creek, and use that for a facility. Drugs, all kind. I've had invitations. I know people who have told me, come on over and get your smoke on. All kind of meth. Needles, all kind of stuff. Why are we being put upon when we're actually lifting up the community? I'd like you to take all that into consideration. Appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Quinn. I'm a resident of Annapolis. I'm here to represent myself mainly and other homeowners and business owners who could not be here tonight. We think your project is not ready for implementation yet. Why do we need a bike path and a walking path along Bay Street in Annapolis? The highway Bay Street is a narrow two-lane hot thoroughfare, taking 15 or more feet of people's property by right of eminent domain just to beautify the area is theft. Offering property owners the evaluated value of 2011 taxes is theft. Property values have significantly raised since 2011, and as well as the tax bill. We support the walking path. If one is required for commuting pedestrians to go to the ferries, but we are not in support of a bicycle path and proposed Jersey barriers, further blocking off the narrow roadway. If the installation of Jersey barriers is to protect the bicyclists and the walkers, I suggest more strict enforcement of the speeding laws along Bay Street in the Annapolis area. Besides the monumental eyesore of Jersey barriers along the roadway, what happens to residents who already have limited parking in the area? Would the city restrict me from parking my car near my home simply to unload my groceries? I also point out that the graffiti on the different city signs and fences, these Jersey barriers would be Tiger's Challenge and Delight. Who would be responsible for cleaning these? Crossing the street to enter businesses or dwellings is currently extremely dangerous along Bay Street. Fast vehicles rounding the curves endanger public safety on a daily, nay hourly basis. Restricting the crossing areas and demanding that citizens go several blocks out of their way to safely cross the street is unreasonable. Also, what are the environmental implications of the shoreline erosion and deterioration of natural habitat of birds and other shoreline animals? There are blue herons and bald eagle nests all over the hills in Annapolis. There are several bald eagles nesting in trees near my house. I see the blue herons fishing in the water in front of my house every day. Both breeds of birds are protected species by the current federal law, Endangered Species Act of 1973. They may not be disturbed. By altering or removing their habitat, we endanger them further. The project is not well thought out, and I feel it requires further examination and working with the citizens who live in the Annapolis area.
I'm Kristen McGee with Whiskey Gulch Coffee Pub, and I have my speech written, but I just wanted to start by saying that I'm a little dismayed and disheartened by the statement against Whiskey Gulch making any effort to suggest putting the pathway in the front of our business. That was the very first thing we ever talked about with any of the city council and the mayor, or not city council, excuse me, but with the mayor. We're willing to work. And I want that on the record. We're willing to work with the city, and we also have a whole neighborhood of people here that are affected just as much as we are, and our employees. So to say that Whiskey Gulch has never formally made a written request to move the trail, and what trail? We have no idea what's going on. We've had to search everything in the public records. Everything. So I'm just going to read my speech. I'm trying to calm down a little bit because we are not the enemy here, and I feel like we've been attacked. So first, I'm going to start out with the lack of communication between the city and the residents has been very disconcerting. We have no idea what's happening, as I stated earlier, and it worries me. I have very big concerns about pedestrian safety, as well as the future of many of our employees. And the plans show that up to 22 feet of our frontage will be used for allocated to the path, and that's where 17 of our parking stalls are. All of the parking for the building is there. The lots next to us are not parking for the building. We bought those separately. My other concerns include parking for the use of the trail. Where are people going to go to park and access the trailhead? Now, if you're taking parking away from all of Annapolis, who's going to drive where to get on the path? I don't have any, there's no plans for that. And also with the Annapolis ferry dock, being upgraded and expanded 300 feet. Where are all those people going to park? They can use possibly larger vessels that are coming in. With the lack of parking, how are we going to be useful for our community and events, have meetings? How will we even be able to stay in business? Our livelihoods and futures really do rest on this. And due to the nature of our business, it's important that we have parking access easy in and easy out. So my time is almost up. I did narrate my notes a little bit. I have taken some pictures of our parking that will be taken away for a baseline on what effect it's going to have on our business. And I don't know who to give those to.
City
You?
Clerk.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
My name is Chuck Huck. I'm one of the owners of Whiskey Gulch, and I can tell you right now, this is not where I want to be at all. I'm a very simple guy. I like to go to work. I like to hang out with my family, maybe watch some sports on TV, you know? And I would like to thank you guys right away. I heard you guys talking about going and putting those no parking signs. I think that's a great idea. But what about all the people that are going to be backing out of all these spots over the pathway? Are you worried about their safety at all? Anyways. We live in, and I wrote these on the way here, so. We live in an incredible city. Maybe not perfect to many from the outside, but pretty perfect to many. Is growth important? Absolutely, but not to the point where it damages the fabric of who we are as a community. I really do love the unique little blue-collar town that we live in. I love the fact that, you know, we get all the small town aspects along with being able to go to the big city an hour away in Seattle. It's really, really neat. And when I have family come here, they're like, it's incredible. We elect our city officials because we hope they hold the same basic ideals as the community it represents. Not the ideals of the few or developers or whatever. They hold the ideals of the community as a whole. The community is made up of family and community-first citizens. I know this because I deal with hundreds of them a day, thousands a week at my business. I talk to them. I hear what they have to say. You know, and I can tell you right now, there is no excitement over this pathway. Zero. Except from a few, of course. So, as a small town with small town values, what do we expect from our local leaders? Well, to care for our citizens before developers, for one. That would be nice. I mean, you do work for the citizens. I may be mistaken. Transparency. You know, I mean, the cities that I see that are developing, and they're doing it responsibly, they're so proud of it. They put it all out there. They're like, look at what we're doing. We can't get any answers. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. Respect. When you go and you ask to meet with the mayor, and you sit with him, and right next to him, Mark Dorsey looks at us and says, I don't mean to be a dick, but deal with it. Okay, anybody who owns a business, if one of your employees said that to one of your guests, what would happen to him? It's not okay. And then we go and we talk to the Vaughts, who dealt with the same thing. They go and they're told, their home, they said, if you don't like it, go and move to a gated community or out to the country. Who says that? So anyways, citizens of Port Orchard, we need to take a look at ourselves too, because you know something, this is our fault. Because we're allowing these guys to go unopposed. We allowed that. But we can't allow that to happen again. It's not okay. Thank you for your time.
I am actually property owner of Tremont Place. I just wanted to say something about your communication skills because you managed to send me all my tax assessing where my property values are going up, which is kind of funny considering you're putting a gas station in front of my house, but you're unable to send me the notifications that the gas station is coming. I had to wait until the sign goes up. Then I called the city and I finally figured it out through my neighbors saying, no, we sent you the notification. Please look at it. What do you mean? Look at it. Look at the address. Does that make sense? Oh no, we have the wrong address on file. But I'm getting my tax mail. You're figuring out how to get the tax bill to me, but you're unable to tell me that you're putting a gas station in front of my house. I actually think that's rather inappropriate by any standard of communication. And each time I come here, I travel a lot, there's something new. McCormick Woods, Annapolis. What is next? Are we getting rezoned commercially around Tremont Place? It would not surprise me. Who's next? What eminent domain is next? What house is next? What neighborhood? I really want to know so I make sure I can sell my property first. Thank you.
My name's Lindsay Daugherty. I'm owner of the proper as well. I don't have a speech. I wasn't even going to talk, but sitting here, I grew up in this town. I love this town, born and raised. Half the city council members, Mr. Kachardi, your kids come to our shop. John Clausen, I do his daughter's hair. His son-in-law gets his hair cut by my husband. Fred Chang goes there. You know, you guys will destroy something that we've created. And we put our heart and soul into this place, and you want to destroy that, and 17 families we're providing for our homes. My husband begged me, let's stay in Tacoma, and I said, no, I see growth in Port Orchard. And you know what? He's damn proud that he built his businesses here. But this kind of crap, I'm like, maybe we should have. It's sad. We don't get the communication is terrible from you guys. It's awful. And Mark Dorsey, they're right. You and I, with the Jingle Bell Bash and the construction that went down there, and I came up and talked to you, and you basically told me, deal with it. I didn't know my road was closed. I had to tell all my stylists, move your clients, remember? No, of course not, but I did. No, the construction that happened down there. I said, all it takes is an email, something, some sort of communication. We're helping Port Orchard thrive and grow. We've just been voted best at SK for the second time. We've only been open 3.5 years. We've put our heart and souls into this community. And it's really saddening to know it's like, figure it out. You guys are fine. It will destroy us, destroy us. We try to make Annapolis look so much better. My flower pots just got vandalized, stolen. That junkyard that's across the street, it's awful. Do something about that. A bike path that leads to nowhere, honestly, a crap plant and a ferry terminal. No one who wants to walk down that. Come sit in our shops. Come talk to our people. Go down to Whiskey Gulch. Go sit down there. Go talk to the community. Nobody wants this. We have a petition with over, I think, 1,200 signatures or something already against this. Come talk to us. Make us feel a part of it. And I agree, it's kind of our fault because we've elected you. I voted for half of you, and I'm ashamed. So, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff. My name is Sean Odell. I don't represent a business. I don't represent either one of you up there on the stands. I don't represent anybody but the consumers in this town. I moved to this town almost 30 years ago. The reason being is because I saw what Bremerton was doing. I left Bremerton for the simple reason that I didn't think they had a direction. I don't represent anything but the consumers. And all I ask from you folks and you folks in the community to please work together, okay? That's all anybody wants. That's all I ask. I work out of 8 different counties in this Western Washington. I deal with communities, I deal with governments, and the biggest thing that I am advocate about is partnerships. Please listen to your community. I've read your guys' bios. I've read some of the things that you guys believe in. I've talked to each and every one of you once or twice in my whole life. Maybe a couple of you I haven't. I'm partners in my community and my utility that I work for with the city of Port Orchard. Again, all I ask, please be transparent. Please work together. This is your community. These are the people that can back you in any way, shape, or form. But you must work together. Any government that's going to be successful is going to hear their people. I'm not going to sit up here and say what I believe in. I'm not going to say that I am feeling that the council is right. I'm not saying the community is right. What I am saying, again, 2 things take away. Partnerships, transparency. I do not shop anywhere else but Port Orchard, except for a couple different corporate, Costco being one, of course, but that's the feel. Lastly, I want to leave you with, we have too many vacant buildings in Port Orchard as is. We cannot stand to lose any more businesses. I'm not saying we're going to lose businesses, but I want you to be mindful of that, because businesses, once they start to deteriorate, they leave. Our community then suffers. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
My name is Connie Haworth, and I represent 1803 and 1805 Bay Street. We knew when we bought the property about 5 years ago that you were going to have 6 feet, and we were going to lose 6 feet of the property, which is fine. We're good with that. We would love to have a path, because right now when we walk down to Whiskey Gulch for lunch, it's pretty treacherous. So, you know, a path is a very good thing, but also access to all the businesses is a good thing. So 1805 is our tenant. Kate's courtyard is at risk. 6 feet is fine. Kate is 8.5 feet off the fog line. If you take 15 feet, Kate's courtyard will be reduced from this to just her little sidewalk. So basically 3 feet, she can open her door barely. Quality of life goes down the hill. My husband and I were driving to the credit union, and we saw this on Melcher. And I'm thinking, why on earth do they need 9 extra feet for a bike lane when they've got this on Melcher? They're already using it. It's not busy yet. There's a housing development slated to be there. Unfortunately, I think the moratorium on water is a little issue there. But that being said, there's no reason why this couldn't be a wonderful pathway. And even venture charter, yes, there's issues there, but they can be worked out. My friends and I did a walkabout, and we did a little pictorial, and I didn't bring it here because I thought it was too simplistic, because I think there's other reasons behind the bike path, kind of a smoke and mirror thing. I don't really feel that it's about the bike path or the walking path. I think it's about big business, and I'm really worried about that. So, you know, unfortunately, right now, Thursday, we're meeting with a lawyer. So I get to lose a lot of money for pretty much no reason. We'll probably lose because, you know, you usually lose. Can't fight City Hall. Isn't that what they always say? But you know what? We're going to try anyway. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Samantha Smith, and I'm the owner of Josephine's Mercantile in downtown Port Orchard. No offense to you, Mr. Mayor. I'm called the unofficial mayor of Port Orchard by all of my customers, friends. I'm coming tonight. Annapolis built me. I did have run-ins with Mark Dorsey. They're not great. I'm not going to go into that because I can't remember because I have other things on my mind. But what I want to say is Annapolis built me. Nobody cared about Annapolis 6 years ago when I moved in. Nobody cared about the drugs, the derelict buildings, the drunken drivers, the homeless people, and now all of a sudden Annapolis is wanted. I'm sure Kitsap Transit has something to do with that. But as a business owner downtown who has sunk my heart and soul into the business, I am not a hobby business in downtown. And I will tell you what, after being there a year and a half, it's tough as hell downtown because you don't have businesses open. People want to come and go as they please. And I am open 7 days a week, 8.5 hours a day. And I have become the tourist location of downtown Port Orchard. And sometimes I joke about that I'm the shiniest turd in the toilet. I don't like that. I want to fight to be the coolest building business downtown. If anything, I rant and rave for downtown Port Orchard. Josephine was my grandmother. She graduated from South Kitsap High School in 1939. I don't know if any of you guys have family lineage like that, but I do. And so when I'm here in Port Orchard, I had an opportunity to move when I moved from Annapolis to Gig Harbor. I had a great offer in Bremerton. I turned all of them down because this is my hometown. What this pathway will do to nowhere, when they're asking about parking, it's going to fill up my parking with already the shipyard workers who don't, not negatively, they don't buy from me. They get on the boat, they come back, they leave. I constantly fight parking. This will put tons of parking in my area and push it. And to be honest, I don't really think a lot of people use it. What you guys have done with the pathway is amazing, and I thank you for that. I have people coming all the time going, where's Cedar Cove? You found it. What do you have to do in downtown Port Orchard? Why are the stores not open? Where is there to eat? You can come and ask me what people are saying because I know the people at this point. I know them very well and I know what they're asking. We have people from all over Washington moving here. We have people from all over the world coming here. I ask that, I'm not saying not build the pathway. I'm asking just for transparency because you affecting Whiskey Gulch, which is the reason that I'm even existing today, and the proper and anywhere else is going to affect my business downtown. And this idea is great, but if you have no good businesses going in there, what's the point? Bring them to downtown Port Orchard for what? Empty buildings full of rats? So please think about the cause and effect, and I believe that you guys will make the right decision. I have to believe that because I'm invested 2.5 more years here. I'm not going anywhere. So I ask that you guys open up those lines of transparency and communication, being a lot more honest, and maybe just doing these studies that you guys are talking about, just where the city knows. We want to trust our elected officials. And I appreciate all of you guys, and I truly believe that after tonight, you're going to come back and say, how can we be more transparent? How can we be more honest? Because right now, I'm just afraid that Kitsap Bank or Kitsap Transit's in everybody's back pocket. And I don't believe that, hopefully. Thank you.
My name is Cheryl Fowler, and actually I am an ex-employee of Kitsap Transit. I was a deckhand first mate for the Admiral Pete Carlisle and the General Chesty. I personally did the Annapolis run. One thing, I wish Mr. Clausen was here because he can probably validate this, but the boat can only take on 10 bikes at a time for passenger safety. In the event, if there's a bike that's more than, or if there's more than that, we have to take 3 passengers off. So 10 bikes is 30 passengers. That's basically taking the back aft of the boat off. So please keep in mind that this bike pathway is supposed to be, I think I've heard that it's supposed to bring on, help detour shipyard workers from parking and ride their bikes. There's actually the facilities, the fleet is not equipped to accommodate this as of yet. I heard the waterman is supposed to be coming on. However, I don't even think the place is dredged enough to be able to allow the waterman to ride Annapolis, much less I don't think it's even viable to even be in the water as we speak. So just please keep in mind that I've heard this, the fleet, once I said, is not equipped to take on more than 10 bikes. Will that be able to eliminate all the jobs and the homes for 10 bikes? Thank you.
Others wishing to address the council this evening?
Just a couple of simple points. You may have noticed it rains here most of the time. I'm here to tell you, I work at the shipyard. People don't ride their bikes from here to the ferry to there. Bikes and rain gear don't mix very well.
Can I have you state your name for the record, please? Can I have you
Oh,
state
I'm
your
sorry.
name for the record?
I'm Gregory Edward Godby. Second point, ask yourselves, why do people go to Paulsbo? What does Paulsbo have that Port Orchard doesn't? My wife and I spend a lot of time in Paulsbo, walking around the downtown area, and walking along the waterfront. When I first transitioned here from Connecticut, I used to walk around Port Orchard. Now I go to Paulsbo. Ask yourself why.
Others wishing to address the council this evening?
My name is Stephen Sweeney. My property joins Bay Street between Annapolis and Colonel Sanders. I'd be looking right at your Jersey barriers, which you propose putting all the way from West Bay Center to Annapolis. And all you're doing is creating a giant graffiti canvas. And your public works director so eloquently put all the individual property owners are responsible for removing the graffiti. And then you, good mayor, said, no, that's not right. So I have 2 conflicting statements from 2 people who are supposed to be in authority. Who's really right? You know? So the Jersey barriers are really a total loss for the community. Doesn't help anybody. In the 25 years I've lived there and watched that road, there have been 2 cars cross that little 4-inch curb, extruded curb, and get up on the sidewalk. And both of them were fish and wildlife officers checking people's fishing licenses. No one has driven over it. In the bend down by Venture Charters, yeah, somebody, plowed right through it and went off the end. Okay. Slow people down. They go way too fast on Bay Street. I have used the police officer's radar gun that they assigned to my neighbor and I, and we have clocked people going down that street. They're going 50 or more. Make some money. Charge them $1,000 for every mile over the speed limit. And then you'll start be able to get some money to pay for the storm drains that you're taxing me for that I don't have. Think about it. That's a no-win, putting those Jersey barriers in. There are cable barriers on the freeway that'll stop cars at 65 miles an hour from head-ons. Why not put cable barriers in? It won't reflect sound. It won't be a graffiti wall. Mr. Dorsey says, oh, we can't do that. Well, think about it. You might want to make Port Orchard a nicer place instead of a worse place. Thank you.
Jason is one of our employees from Trillium.
Yes.
He's also our Employee of the Year.
Yes.
All right. So go ahead, Jason, what do you have to say?
I've been working at Whiskey Gulch for 2 years, and Chuck's been helping me too. And I like my job. It's pretty happy.
You're doing great.
And I like the money. And just have a good time.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It really is about the people. It's about those guys. It's about him.
Anyone else wishing to address the council this evening? Go ahead. Yep. Just identify. So, yep. Just speak into the microphone. Identify yourself if you could.
Carol Severson.
Thank you.
I'm a resident in Annapolis on Perry, and bought the house in 1977, and I love what's happening in the last few years. And but even though I'm going to be cut off totally from the waterfront, and we always thought we'd go down there and get a canoe and go out kayaking, canoeing or something. So I'm going to be cut off from that. But I've never been able to find out what's going on. It's funny because I wrote this about transparency yesterday, and I never heard anybody say anything. Now everybody tonight says transparency. I feel like it's getting late in the stage. There's a lot of development supposedly going on. I'd like to know where you're going with this. I'd like to know your intents, what you're going to do, the decisions you're going to make, and if there's any reclamation, because my tidelands have gone from somewhat valuable to now I probably just have a view home, and no one's addressed that issue, and it's it's a large deal living there most of my life. In one place. That's the longest I've ever lived anywhere. And I enjoy it, and I just wanted to say, please work with the people, the neighbors, the businesses, because we love it here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, guys. My name is Nate Werder. I am an ex-employee of Whiskey Gulch. Well, I'll always be an employee of Whiskey Gulch. Sorry, guys. This whole path is a total nightmare to the community and to Whiskey Gulch itself. We can't have this come in and wreck what we've built here. I remember coming into Whiskey Gulch back when it was literally just a coffee shop, and we turned it from the coffee shop that it was into the booming establishment that is not only just becoming a hub for people to come in and meet, but the Rotary Club meets there every Tuesday. Apart from that, we have community meetings come in all the time. We give our space up to different charities in the area. It's not just our building. It's Port Orchard's building. And we can't take that up for 16 feet of concrete. What are we going to use 16 feet of concrete for? What are you going to look at when you're walking on concrete? Dead buildings? Dead establishments and cars? You're not going to get anywhere with that. Are people going to come to Port Orchard to walk the path? Oh, you get 6 miles, walk it. Guess what, guys? That's it. Then what? We want buildings and establishments for people to come into Port Orchard to enjoy. We don't want people to come here for a bike path. People won't. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Changing the topic here. My name's Kim Siebens, and I live in Bremerton, Washington. A few years ago, I founded a local nonprofit called Their Voice, and we teach others about puppy mills and how to avoid unknowingly supporting them. This is very necessary because it's not easy to be an informed consumer. I'm also a registered nurse, and I really like to help people, so I do this, and I do it for free, Sean. Last week, I flew to Missouri. It's actually known as the puppy mill capital of America. I found out how impossible it is to visit these facilities to see how the dogs are being bred and raised. They don't want you to see what's going on inside. The mills are regulated by the USDA, and even they admit to not adequately inspecting or enforcing those facilities. BJ and Guys is a puppy mill in Menlo, Kansas, and Jack's Inc. is a dealer broker over in Britt, Iowa. They have some of the most egregious violations. They supply pet stores in Silverdale and now Puyallup, Washington. We brought some USDA inspection reports and other supportive documentation provided by Bailing Out Benji to share with you. I encourage you to adopt a city ordinance that would prevent the retail sales of puppies and kittens. The mills are using the pet stores to sell their products under the disguise of a happy storefront. And in February 17, the USDA first removed and then heavily redacted all the information on the inspection reports because they said they had privacy concerns. So to get the reports that we're going to provide you with, you have to file a FOIA, then it takes months to receive it, and then very important information is actually redacted. So it kind of shows me that the USDA values the puppy mill's privacy over the consumer's choice. Lastly, I'd like to take a brief moment to address some concerns, some good concerns brought up by Councilmember Ashby. When we testified last year, you had shared concerns that rescues have no regulation, and therefore it is not fair that they can have adoption events at pet stores, but breeders cannot sell their pets there. Even though responsible breeders don't sell their pets to a third party, and adding a totally different issue onto this particular ordinance complicates things to me, I can definitely see your concerns. This is why now I'm proposing an outright ban on the retail sale or any adoption events of puppies and kittens in pet stores. My main concern is for the pets. People can go to a breeding facility or a rescue facility to see if they want to support what they are actually able to observe and not hidden behind closed and unwelcoming doors, like I met in Missouri. Puppy mills and pet stores are not embodying what I believe to be true American values of openness and honesty. This ordinance can help us keep those respected values strong in our community. I thank you very much for considering to bring this up as a study session topic in September. I'll email you my contact information, and I do have plenty of local, state, and national contacts who do things like this policy writing that could kind of get it ready so you're not spending, like you said, so much time like we did last year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Leah Spalding, and I'm the vice president of a pet advocacy nonprofit called Their Voice. Today, however, I am speaking on behalf of myself as a Kitsap resident and a Port Orchard resident. Kitsap County recently placed a ban on the sale of puppy mill dogs, but Port Orchard is not currently protected. The issue with selling dogs from puppy mills is a moral issue, but it is also a consumer issue. 99% of stores that sell puppies are selling dogs that come from puppy mills. A staggering 48% are ill or harboring illness at the time of their sale, and nearly all of them will have parasites. Mr. Mayor, council members, no matter your political stance or background, you have interacted with pets. Perhaps you have wagging tails that greet you at home or cherished memories of a childhood pet. Your community wants to protect that bond. Thank you.
name's Ashley Dale, and I'm a volunteer with Bailing Out Benji. It's a national nonprofit dedicated to educating the public about puppy mills, where they're coming from, their connection to pet stores and online sales. These are the documents that Kim mentioned. There's inspection reports and showing the CVIs of where Farmland and Puppyland and Fairwood Pet Center in Renton are getting their animals from. Port Orchard is in a unique position because they have the opportunity to make Port Orchard make sure that they do not end up with a puppy mill pet store problem. Banning the sale of commercially bred animals is becoming a nationwide movement because more and more people are becoming aware of what a mill is and they will not support them. Puppy mills are licensed by the USDA, but that does not mean that they're ethical and humane. The AWA, the Animal Welfare Act, is supposed to protect the animals that are in commercial breeding facilities, but it's incredibly outdated and the standards of care are survival standards at best. The primary enclosure for a dog, it only has to be 6 inches taller and 6 inches longer than the dog. That would be like a lab living in a bathtub for its entire life. If the dogs are housed in an enclosure twice that size or with other dogs, an exercise plan is not required. Socialization plans are also not required by the AWA. The USDA inspection reports are risk-based, so that means that commercial breeders may only go, they may go 2 to 3 years without an inspection. Research facilities are the only facilities that are inspected annually. USDA license does not mean reputable and does not guarantee the dogs are coming from a breeder who puts health over profit. Reputable breeders do not sell to pet stores because they only breed 1 to 2 times a year typically. They couldn't meet the demand of pet stores. They breed purebreds to better the breed and pay close attention to health and temperament. Most reputable breeders, much like reputable rescues, will have an application process to ensure that their animal's going to a qualified home. And reputable breeders are typically part of their local breed club, and all, almost all breed clubs' code of ethics specifically say that they cannot sell to pet stores. I just encourage Port Orchard to get ahead of the puppy mill pet store issue and pass an ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. I'm Margie Moore. I live in Port Orchard. And I just want to thank you all for opening the door again for us to have, to work together towards some humane community here in Port Orchard. Change happens locally. We can't pass the buck to the state or the county or the federal level. I mean, this has to be a grassroots, organic process. It's like what Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Since we talked last year, 46 additional jurisdictions have passed protective ordinances, Kitsap County being one of them. So you now have the opportunity to partner with them, partner with the county on this protective, humane legislation. And, the city of Port Orchard has seen fit to disallow commercial kennels in 7.22.010. And so why are you leaving the door open for businesses to allow out-of-state commercial kennels to import puppies and kittens for sale in the city limits? So, thank you.
Anyone else wish to? Okay.
I'm Elizabeth Druin, and thank you for allowing us to speak to you tonight. That means a lot to all of us. I'm just here to represent Eric Stevens with the Kitsap Humane Society, and he was unable to be here due to commitments and a lot of in-house work that's going on. But the Humane Society wants you to know that they still stand behind the letter that they sent you last year. They have not changed their attitude on anything. They support the puppy mill ban, and they would like to see you guys go forward with it. Thank you.
Others wishing to address the council this evening?
Nicole Vogt, 243 Tremont Place.
Well, I'm sorry for you from Annapolis. I thought we were singled out in Tremont with a gas station after 2 years of literally hell with noise, our road that were used reopened, and we're going to go through another worse hell than anything else with a gas station 50 feet away from a residence area. We brought an idea, and you, Mr. Mayor, you said that you were not thrilled to have a gas station, another gas station. Please, help us. You have the power to do it. You have the power to work with the people. I know we didn't vote for you, we didn't support you, but you are our mayor, and you're working for all of us. And I don't want to hear stuff like, well, if you don't want a gas station, you should buy a property in a gated area or buy all the land around you. No, we choose Port Orchard. It's a nice city at the human level. And that's why we took it. You're not Baron Haussmann. You cannot redo the whole city in 5 minutes. There are human people that are here. And in my area, we're only 6, 7 houses. Tonight, we're only 2 property owners because the other cannot come. The elderly, one of them is at the hospital right now. So please, do your best to save what you can in our area. And I was there 4 years ago when you stopped the whole problem on Annapolis and for taking those properties with eminent domain. You're the one who stopped it. I have the DVD. Thank you.
Gregory Vance Vaught, 243 Tremont Place. Yeah, the city's growing, and as my wife just pointed out, we can do this a little bit better than we're doing it. These growing pains are mainly caused by the very things that a lot of these people here have been telling you, that if you don't work with us, how are you going to know how to do the best for the community? If the community is shut out and you're only working with promoters and builders, why? What kind of community do you think you're going to have? And do you think it's going to be any easier? These growing pains are only going to get worse. I've been told that you're not even going to deal with us because you're worried about litigation. Well, you may well get it. You keep doing this, and that's exactly where it's going to lead. And that's just going to add to the pain. It's already been insult upon injury to deal with some people who just think that we're talking about something like a business. No, this is our lives. We bought these places to live in them. We didn't buy them to flip them. We don't want to be commercialized. We don't want to have a bunch of so-called leaders telling us we just have to deal with it. No, we don't have to deal with it. And if we have to, we'll find different ways of getting around even what you're doing here. There's always a way, and we will find it. We will save our city, despite you. But I would rather see us work all together, just for a change. I haven't seen it yet. As my wife pointed out, we've already went down that road of no taking property for a bike path. No taking of eminent domain. I've seen it in New London, Connecticut. It destroyed that city, absolutely destroyed it. That happened during September 11th. I was at the Coast Guard station right next door to it. I walked up to a planner, a builder, a guy from the city, and I said, well, these people, a lot of them don't want to move. What's going to happen? And he says, well, they're going to have to. I said, well, if they sue you? He says, well, then they're going to sue us, and then they're going to move. Well, they finally drove the last one out. She painted a Coast Guard stripe on the side of her house thinking that we had something to do with it. People were madder than hell, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And all of the, even though she lost, all of the cities around the country decided that taking of people's property is not right. And most local governments put a stop to the way they were doing that business altogether. And I think that's something we need to look at right here in this city. Thanks.
Others wishing to address the council this evening? Okay.
Hello, I'm Harlan Morgan. I'm part owner of the Peninsula Bevco, and small business is the basic backbone of the United States. And if you drive right down Bay Street, how many businesses are closed, and how many businesses are the business we were in got the 90-day notice, we got closed and closed down. There's nothing. You need to be concentrating on building the business, not taking business out. You go out Bay Street past the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Go past there, Billings, Blanket. You drive down. There's business out everywhere. You go to Paulsbo, you don't see that. You go to Bainbridge, you don't see that. You go to Port Angeles, you don't see that. You go to Gig Harbor, you don't see that. We need to build small business. These guys need to have the place to go. Need a business that works. These people are making money for this and paying taxes. You should be working with us, not working against us. Okay.
Others wishing to address the council this evening? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. One thing I neglected to mention in my mayor's report, that this Thursday, the grocery outlet's having its grand opening, and there's a ribbon cutting at 8:45. If you're not, it's in the South Kitsap Mall. So others wishing to attend that, welcoming that new business into our community. And at this time, the City Council is going to go into an executive session for 30 minutes, could be longer than that. And it's in regards to potential and ongoing litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1010, and we will take no action after they come out of the executive session. Yeah, we're going to take a couple-minute break first.